Hello, Rank Squad, and welcome to the YouTube channel. We're here to talk to you about the 5 top transfers in this window. Sam, you've prepared a list for us, but first and foremost, I think it's important that you set down the parameters.
Well, I had trouble with this one. Really, it was a struggle. So many good pieces of business over the course of the summer, but a couple of simple rules to make my life a little bit easier and to thin out the crowd a little bit. No loans and no free transfers. It would have been very boring if I sat here and just told you all about the PSG transfers you already knew about. So we ruled out Messi and Donnarumma. Of course, they're great deals. We've gone a little bit deeper than that. So if you like, I can kick off with the top 5. I think we'll just start with number 5, and that is Tammy Abraham to Roma. About £34 million from Chelsea, and they have got a buyback in, but it's at a pretty astronomical sort of 80 million range, so don't think it's a particularly constricting buyback from Roma's perspective. And you guys know I'm a big believer in him, and I found it really perplexing actually over the course of the summer where I saw he was linked to Arsenal, and I saw a lot of Arsenal fans saying that they wouldn't really want Tammy Abraham to sign for them. I thought, you're absolutely insane. And it's Roma that have basically hit the jackpot. They're the ones that have taken advantage of the fact that while Tammy Abraham is very, very good, he's just not quite at the level that Chelsea's aspirations are currently set at, which is something close to world domination. And something had to give, and that meant that Tammy essentially was going to have to go, particularly after Lukaku joined. And well, look, Roma's fans are already more than aware of exactly how good Tammy is now in a number of different ways. His first 2 appearances have been stunning. I'd imagine most of the Giallorossi fan base are still stunned watching a forward with actual speed, because that's not really been a thing for like a decade for them. It's pretty rare. You watch Edin Dzeko potter around for 5 years or whatever it was, and then you got the back end of Francesco Totti. I mean, watching Tammy streak in behind defenses and stretch play and play direct and play fast, it must be very different. But with Tammy, I never understood the criticism. He creates, he scores, he builds play, he stretches play. He's 23, and yet he's already got a serious body of work and proof of work to his name. He's always been basically a 1 in 2 striker or better. He's done it in the Premier League. Now he's going to do it in Serie A. And I can't help but escape the feeling that 34 million is just not very much money for a player of his quality. Anyway, we'll move to number 4.
Let's go.
It's Rodrigo de Paul. So 35 million euros, Udinese to Atletico Madrid. I mean, boy, are Atletico lucky that they got this one signed more or less sealed and all but finalized before the Copa America, because in the space of a single tournament here in which he helped Argentina win a trophy, any questions over whether or not 35 million euros on an Udinese player, like he's never played at a higher level than that bar Valencia a long time ago, where I think he was loaned out by Gary Neville. 35 million euros is not a small amount of money. And there would have been some questions, 100%. But over the course of the month, those questions are replaced with other questions. And they were, how did this guy cost 35 million euros? He's absolutely amazing. And look, we watched a lot of Serie A last year. We were big Rodrigo de Paul fans. In January, we implored Arsenal to sign him before the iron got too hot. And yeah, it got to that point where his star had risen to the point where Atletico were the caliber of club that he could attract, and the caliber of club that wanted him. And like, he's hit his prime, no doubt about it. He is an alpha of a creator, a chief creator. And the beauty of De Paul is that he backs that up with a tremendous defensive work ethic as well, and a grit. And this is a player who levels up Atletico's midfield big time. He makes them better. That's not easy to do nowadays. It's a pretty difficult task. And he's such a flexible and moldable player and so multifaceted. Simeone's going to love him. He's going to love Simeone. This is going to be a huge success. And yeah, I popped this one in ahead of Tammy. I sort of played with the idea of swapping them around because De Paul's 27 and Tammy's 23, so there's definitely more longevity in that other signing. But I guess I'm absolutely 100% convinced that Rodrigo de Paul is this level, and this is a higher level than Tammy is playing at. So I ended up edging towards that one, but it was a close one, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Like, I mean, I don't think it's as fun, but again, it would definitely be in the top 5 for me. I mean, he's just such a glorious player to watch. Like in full flow, the fact that he just dribbles, he can go onto both feet, his low center of gravity, the agility, the speed of the way he carries it. And like you say, that kind of double-edged sword in that we know that creative players sometimes struggle under Diego Simeone and João Felix. But, it does feel that sometimes, you're looking at a player and you think you are tailor-made for a certain manager. And I feel like this about DePaul. I felt like the fact that he comes in, he explosively springs from defense into attack. He'll be able to complement that kind of rigid defensive structure. He can complement that counter-attacking range. And then he's got that passing range on top of it all where, if you front him up, he knocks it past you, dribbles past you, and off you go. And if you back him off, he just suddenly starts to spring like beautiful passes around the pitch. And suddenly you're thinking, how do you defend this guy? And with the other riches that Atleti have across the board, I just think this is almost, like you say, a guaranteed success. I think it's a wonderful transfer. He's a wonderful footballer, and I'm just really excited to see him in the Liga.
Okay, number 3 is a deadline day edition. This is what had me screaming in the cafe for everybody to just stop what they were doing, because I had a nice top 5, and then Eduardo Camavinga went to Real Madrid, didn't he?
He did.
I mean, 30 to 40 million euros, something like that. Initial fee rising up to bonuses. I think in total this is going to cost 40 odd. Look, he's still very young. There's still a lot for Camavinga to add to his game, but we've known for 2 years that this kid is destined to be a star. And Real Madrid have been in this conversation the whole way through. Last 2 years, we've been expecting it. And they've been waiting for it. I think this summer we saw PSG poke their nose in. We saw United put their beak in as well. But Real Madrid have got the player that I think clearly 2 years ago, Zinedine Zidane identified as someone that he saw as a long-term buy for Real Madrid, and someone that perhaps maybe he can long-term replace Casemiro, but short-term at least just freshen up an aging core and add some mobility to it. Between he and Valverde now, Real Madrid are on the verge of basically a new generation of midfielders if they need to switch to it. And Camavinga is someone that a lot of people think should be a holding midfielder. I think he could do it. I also think that'd be a bit of a waste. I see him as more of a voracious, ball-winning, sort of explosive player that can get across the pitch, cover the ground, and make an impact in every single corner across every blade of grass. In the same way that you unleash Kante, you don't restrict him, you let him go. And Camavinga has that mobility, that tenacity, but he's got a wonderful passing range as well. I think he will end up being a complete midfielder.
It's such a great pickup. It's not only one for the future, it's one for now. He's someone who's going to move into this midfield rotation. It also means that he has a little bit of time to settle in, right? He's not going to be thrust into the deep end. And I think something that maybe we haven't talked about quite as much so far is the price tag on this is really reasonable.
Yeah, it's not that
now,
much, is it?
I know that's why I know that Ren won't be pleased about that, and that's a little bit harsh on a side who will have want to, if they're going to have to flip their best players, they'll be wanting getting the value for them that they think is good, and you do feel a little bit for them. There's also this element that if you come in with a massive price tag as an 18-year-old, the pressure increases hugely. You come in with a 30 million odd price tag, you don't. And I think that given with all of that in mind, it's just a nice thing to be able to look at and go, right, you have the time and space to develop into what you need to be without having that huge pressure on your shoulders to fulfill what you've been paid for.
On to number 2. This is probably the most unfair transfer of the window, in my opinion. I don't know how they keep doing this. Marcel Sabitzer for like 16 million euros to Bayern Munich. How do they do it? I mean, Sabitzer is such a good player. He's so good. He's smack bang in the middle of his prime. He can play pretty much every midfield role under the sun. He can provide the difference. He can score great goals. He can provide great assists. He's been brought up through the Red Bull system, learning to press and to counter press. Like, he's a complete midfield player. And to have a player like this, you're lucky to have one. And Bayern have just picked him up for 16 million euros. I just don't get it, man. I know he had a yes deal. I understand that. And I know that the deal is, you go to Leipzig and then you do your time and you move on and stuff. But this is just like, man.
When Mourinho was at Tottenham, they were really looking at him. This was like probably February, March time. And they were looking at a £30 million deal for this summer. So what,
What happened?
what happened? Like, one, why didn't they still sign him after Mourinho left? And two, how's he gone from £30 million to 16 million euros, which is
12 million quid.
Yeah.
It's just
I understand
remarkable. It's a kind of like
He's so good.
I've seen some tweets about this, right? And seen some people being like, Bayern have now signed from the team who came second their manager, star centre back, and captain in one window. It's not fair. But I mean, what can you do? Sabitzer was running his contract down. Like, Bayern wanted him. He clearly wanted to go to Bayern. He's 27 years old. He's still got a long time left at the top level. I think this could be one of the best moves of the summer. I think you're absolutely right, Sam. It's right up there with Tammy for me, in terms of just how good this is. I think this is two. I think this is my two. I think you're absolutely spot on with where you have this in your list. And it's just that Sabas is so good, and it's one of those strange ones where I think people maybe miss him out sometimes because he plays for a slightly more unfashionable nation. Leipzig are a side who, while people respect, don't necessarily watch a lot of until they're in the latter stages of the Champions League. And Sabitzer might have just been forgotten about a wee bit. And you sometimes just have those players. The good news from Leipzig's perspective is they just have Szoboszlai to basically slot into that role, right? And that's what still hope will happen here, that Szoboszlai will basically take on Sabitzer's mantle as that kind of versatile midfield playmaker creator. And he started really well. So there's that to consider. But on the whole, Leipzig will be absolutely spitting about this. They will be fuming because it feels so low for a player of his quality and caliber.
I could not get away from the idea that the best transfer made this summer was Manchester United's purchase of Raphael Varane for reportedly £34 million, rising to maybe something like close to 41. And I had a snoop around on the wages as well to check if I was going to get tripped up there. I think he might be on roughly 200 grand a week. And this just isn't, these are just not offensive numbers. These are downright okay numbers. And he is one of the best. They have bought one of the best defenders, centre-backs in the game for an entirely reasonable price and put him on an entirely reasonable wage. The fantastic debut performance against Wolves probably alerted the last few people that were blind to just how good he is. I'm looking at you, national radio station. And now I think there can be no doubt. Like, yes, he's got 4 Champions League medals to his name. He's played a decade at Real Madrid and won everything there is to win. He's got the right mentality. He's got the ability. The Manchester United are really lucky to have had Varane fall into their laps this summer.
The other thing of it is, isn't it? It's when people talk about Ronaldo and is he past it and all that kind of stuff, and you think, well, what have United been missing? And it's that winning mentality and that ability to get over the line, whether it's Premier League or in Europe. And they've signed a defender and a striker who have, like, how many between them? How many Champions League between them? Like
Nine.
Between them, they won the Champions League 9 times.
To be fair, 8 of them were together.
Together, yeah, fair, yeah. So it's only 2. So, like, yeah. But yeah, that should help. That should help Man United go to that next level. And if it doesn't, then they've given it a good crack, and they certainly won't be any worse.
No, I think they're definitely not going to be getting worse. No, it's a brilliant transfer. I do agree, Sam. I still wouldn't have had it in my 5.
You wouldn't?
I wouldn't have had this in my 5.
Come on.
No.
You say some stuff. You're like Adrian Durham, you are.
No, I'm not. I like Varane. I wouldn't have had this in my 5. I think the money, I think it's about right. I think they paid about the right amount for him. I think he's about the right amount of wages. I just think it's just all quite like, yes, they've got it pretty right, but like, it's not like a Sabitzer where you're like, how have they got him for that kind of money? It seems about, what I'd have him at worth at this point.
It's not like best value transfers. It's the best transfers. It all comes with the whole package.
But that's part of it, isn't it?
It's like
it's some of these
not
ones.
All of it.
It's not all of it, though, is it? It's Varane, and he's joined Man United. Like,
yeah, and they still don't have the 6 they need to sort this out.
That
This is it.
Nothing to do with Raphael Varane.
Nothing to do with this.
They needed a 6 before they needed a centre back, and they've not addressed their problem position.
This is nothing to do with Raphael Varane. This is not his fault.
Nothing to do with that. He couldn't say to them, "You don't need me. Go and sign number 6."
He wasn't.
He could have said, "I'm only coming if you sign a number 6 to protect me a little bit. Thanks very much."
He doesn't need a number 6. He does that job himself after time.
Well, Sam, thank you so much. A brilliant list. And I'm sure that everybody will have their own versions of what that is. Let us know what you think the top 5 transfers were in the comments below. And make sure, if you haven't already, you're subscribed to the channel to get the best of Ranks FC on YouTube. Thanks for watching. And we'll see you soon.